Hi everybody, Jill here with my next journal planner flip. This is my June and July journal planner. And if you've seen my videos, you've seen the way I set them up with my 2 months at a glance at the front. This is almost finished on the outside. I wanted a bright sunny yellow color, but it's going to need another coat. I used this Sennelier Abstract Fluorescent Yellow. I like these pouches. They're indestructible, they're handy. It's got, you know how a tube sticks and your tube twists up? Well, that doesn't happen with these. So, okay, so where we finished off last month, I already did my June flip, was right here. And let me make sure I'm still in the... Yes, I had to make sure I was still in the camera. I was doing this as a trial because, if you remember from my last video, when I did this one, the watercolors wouldn't behave. I got these awful blooms. I really struggled. I was like, is it the paper? Is it the paint? These were Jane Davenport watercolors in a Jane Davenport journal. So on this one, I tried the Danielle Smith watercolors. They behaved a little better, but I think honestly it might be just that I learned to work faster and use the right amount of water. I don't know. I still had some problems with blooms and hard edges. I'm also thinking maybe a lot of the work I've been doing is with acrylic ink, and I get, I don't want to say lazy, but secure in the fact that my under layers don't lift or move. You can just keep layering over top. So I think basically I just need to practice more with this background technique with the watercolor over top. So anyway, that's to catch us up on that. This was the first black fountain pen, sepia fountain pen. Her face is a little wonky, but I love her hair. It's beautiful, isn't it? All right, on the second, I used 2 fountain pens, my Lamy with Noodler's ink, the Sunrise, and a Jane Davenport pen with an orange cartridge. And I decided not to use the water. I left it sketchy and scratchy, and I liked it. She looks a little haggard, like she had a difficult night or something, and I really messed up her hands. If I were doing the water, I'd be able to fix her hands. But anyway, it was fun making the pattern in her dress. This was like 3 colors, yellow, orange, and red. This page, I pulled this out of a magazine, and it's an old picture. The story started on the back here. It was Andy Warhol apparently kept this crew of people. I didn't even know this. And he called them all superstars because he said everybody has 15 minutes of fame. And he hung with these people, and these are old photos. And this is one of his superstars, Edie Sedgwick. And I don't know why she had the lace over her head, but I thought it was a beautiful image. My intention was to put the fabric over her head, but then stencil in there and change it up and do a different dress. I love this dress here. I really intend to use that on some other clothing. That was just really quick strokes with black watercolor. And in the last minute, I decided to attempt the lace, and I'm really glad I did because that's a really good process for making lace. I took my fountain pen, obviously did quick loose lines for where I wanted the flowers and the designs, and then in between made speckles and then wet it with the water brush. And I thought it really gave a nice lace effect. I also love that shadow across her head. The one thing I will say, I always enlarge the eyes and make them bigger than they are in the picture, but this eye here is completely, she looks fisheye. And when I look at this picture, this eye is set way back more into the head. So if there was one thing I would say I learned from that, it was the eye placement there is very odd. So this was just my fountain pen and water. I started doodling in her hair and left it just at that suggestion of hair. Don't know why. I got a new Lamy pen, this bright pink one. Now I have this pink ink. It happens to be in another fountain pen right now. but I had purchased this platinum mixable earth brown ink, so I wanted to try it in this pen. It will be a lot easier when I get the right inks in the right color pens. Or I should say not right, but matching. It'll make it easier to find the color I want. But this was experimenting with this earth brown ink, and I really like it. The pigments separate into like pinky browns and yellowy browns, and I like these 3 girls. They were fun. More fountain pen work with some loose watercolor over top. I like that. I like the effect. I like the hard edges. I like the fact that you could still see scribbling. This girl, it was the use of a stencil and only 2 color pens. And I like the use of the stencil in the hair and the shirt, but her eyes look a little wild, a little too intense. There's something going on with the eyes there. That's 7-7. Now, on the weekend of 7-7 and 7-8, there was a free art workshop online, Creative Art Retreat 2018. There were 16 artists, 8 on Saturday, 8 on Sunday, that gave a free lesson, but you only had access to those lessons for 24 hours. So I, woke up and we were well into the lessons because they started, I think, at midnight. And I picked the first one that appealed to me, and this was continuous line drawing with Jeanette House. Now, continuous line drawing is nothing new. I did it back in school. I've done it a couple times since. But I liked what it did with the faces she was working on. So this is not 100, I almost stuck to 100% continuous line. And I used this as my reference. And boy, she looks nothing like that. But it's a really interesting face. I liked it. So I took that and I did it again with my Lamy Pen and added water and added journaling. And I really like the character look of the faces, and you'll see I did a lot more of it. This lesson was Tony Burton. It was her process, but not anything like her art. I used her process on my kind of face. It's a lot of gouache, and I used my Stabilo 3-in-1 woody. It's just like a Stabilo all pencil, but I find the big chunkiness of it causes me to draw more loosely, where a regular pencil I might hold like this and draw. This one I hold way back here and do this kind of work. You put down gloss gel medium first, and it's important, and that makes everything else kind of slide around and drip and really loose. The problem is I didn't put this piece of paper in here. And then I did this lesson with Andrea Gamal. This is lavender. I enjoyed learning how to do that. And I changed the face. I've taken lessons with Andrea Gamal before. She's an illustrator, so she does a lot of outlining and cross-hatching, and it's beautiful, but this is more my style. I was so happy with this face. It was beautifully, softly shaded. I made more my kind of hair than hers. Same necklace she had, same ears, same lavender. And then I didn't have this paper in, so when I did the next page, all of this transferred right onto her face. And I'm really kind of sad about that. There's no taking that off. That's all water soluble. The minute I hit that with any kind of water, it's just going to explode. So that's all right. What can you do? So these were, the lessons. There's another lesson on the 8th with Emma Pettit. Acrylic, some texture paste. I wasn't thrilled with this pattern texture going onto her neck, but I really liked a lot about this, and it made me more interested in working with acrylics again. I do work with acrylics once in a while. I wish there was time to pursue. I could take every one of these lessons and go down a rabbit hole with them. I could take this and work on a version of this every day for the next 3 months and see where it took me. Or I could take this and work on it every day for the next 3 months and see where it took me. There's not enough time. There's just not enough time in a day. And too many interesting processes, mixed media processes out there. So I did use this later. You'll see. Here I went back to the line drawing. This is Stabilo all pencil, gesso, and water. And it wasn't as much of continuous line as she did in hers, but you could see I used it to make some planes in the face, planes in the neck. And I like this. This day I just went back to that new stencil that I've been using, and 3 different, the Quinn Nickel Azo Gold in the Golden High Flow paint, Quinn Gold Deep in Danielle Smith Watercolor, and the Stabilo All Orange pencil. So it was 3 different mixed media, but all basically the same color. I like that. Back to the line drawing again. You could see that out of the weekend lessons, that's probably the one that interested me the most to keep going with it. Here, this is Stabilo brown pencil with acrylic paint, and I really wanted the color erase, Prismacolor color erase pencils. But that day I was off from work. I had gone to a funeral on the 10th. I was exhausted. I had to go renew my passport. It was blazing hot outside, and I stopped by the pharmacy to pick up a prescription, and they had, this is way too much information, they had Crayola erasable pencils. And I thought, oh, what the heck, I'm too tired to go all the way up to Jerry's. Let me just grab these. So this is my little test with Crayola erasable pencils. I drew this girl in with brown and quick did watercolor, and the brown pencil completely disappeared. And this was my test. These are the 12 colors. You can see they erase really nicely, although they don't really disappear when you go over with watercolor until you start scrubbing. I did get the color erase after all, but that was my test with those. Okay, this is just a watercolor girl with some gel pen background. My friend said, here, try the Signo white rollerball pen, and you can see it is much brighter. I used that right here. So mine died years ago. I need to try and get another one of those, I think, for doodling. And here I wanted to try this man, not for accuracy or not for a portrait, but to capture an expression, a pose. I went right in with a, I think it was a Pitt pen. It's a permanent pen, brush tip brown marker. And no pencil, a lot of continuous line work. And then afterwards I went over with a light wash of watercolor. And I like that. I think that's pretty cool. I'm saving all my reference pictures just to show you in this video, and then I'll probably take them out of the journal. This was building upon the Emma Pettit lesson with acrylics. I really like this. I did the background with a gift card, just a limited colors of paint. I think it was this blue, this red, this kind of yellowy ochre, and white with black Stabilo All. I could do a lot more of this. Now, all of these pages, within a day or two, when you open them, they start sticking. You hear that, but you notice they're not. I went over all of them with the Distress Glaze. I sit and polish over it and rub it with a tissue, and it leaves everything not sticky. It's wonderful. And it doesn't disturb, I don't know why, but it doesn't disturb your water-soluble Stabilo All pencil or Stabilo Woody. I don't know. It's amazing. Another one. I have my new stencil from Gulf Sprite. I love this new stencil, and I was dying to try it. So this whole picture, believe it or not, is done with just these 2 colors and white. And it's amazing. Oh, well, underneath I also collaged some, you can see some book pages, some black and white. Nothing with any color, though. And then I went over it with the paints and layer and layer and layer, mixing in little bits of white, and negative space painted her hair. So, like I say, I could take this and keep going and see where it takes me. Oh, back to my fountain pen, just a turquoise fountain pen. I love this girl. I think, if I remember correctly, I made up the face, but then I went to a reference for a shirt, because once in a while I get really bored trying to think up clothes and shirts and hairstyles. And I love her expression. It looks like, to me, somebody standing there like she's about to say something. I really, really feel it. Whereas this girl, I don't know why. This girl doesn't speak to me. She's just, I don't know. You may disagree. She might be saying something to you, but she's not saying anything to me at all. She, I don't know, just doesn't thrill me. I did see a video on how to make these leaves with just 2 quick strokes. So you could see each one was just 2. That was fun. I like that. And I'll be able to use that somewhere else. Pencil sketch. Sometimes I start a sketch thinking it's going to get painted, and I just keep going with the pencil and leave it at that. I didn't even use a stump or a blender or anything, just left my sketchy lines. More fountain pen. Fountain pen and water and journaling. We're up to 717. This was inspired by Christy Sobolewski, Gulf Sprites, doing her Girls of Summer faces on YouTube. And this was my girl of summer. She's bright and sunny and yellow and hot colors and flowers. Now, this I did at work. I work in a psychiatric hospital, and I facilitate a lot of arts and crafts groups, maybe like 12 a week. And the lesson, or I should say the project that day, was abstract trees on top of this paper. So it was to draw a tree and color each in different color with colored pencils. So while they were doing that, I got bored and took the same tree upside down and did a face. Cheap black marker, Crayola colored pencils. And I thought it was adorable. I was like, that was so much fun. I taped it in here. Underneath, I decided to get back out my mermaid markers. If you saw my last video, this was to try and get the hang of the markers again before I made my video. I mean, look at the bold colors. I put this blue in her hair, and when I wet it, it just exploded. This is a little too colorful for me, but I needed to warm up to get back to used to doing those again. So these are my notes of what colors I used. Just my morning journaling. A lot of journaling in the back. This is a mermaid marker in her hair and these squares. This is a fountain pen and some watercolor. My to-do list. This woman was inspired by a coworker, somebody I don't see very often. I ran into her in the hallway, and just that day she looked so pretty. She had a beautiful dress with a sweater over her shoulders and hoop earrings, and this doesn't really look like her, but it was inspired by her. The yellow is a little too much for me, but you know, it was one of those moments where I just looked at this person and connected and said, wow, you know, it said to myself, you look wonderful today, you know, and it was just a little bit of happiness seeing somebody that, I don't know, I connected with. So that yellow is kind of a happy color, I guess, for me. Okay, here's my reference picture. I saved it for you, and oh, I didn't get out my other. Let me stop the video and go get it. Hold on. Okay, it took me a few minutes, but I found it. I saw a video online. It was an old one from maybe 2016 by Sandrine Pellissier? I don't know how to say it. Sandrine Pellissier. How to paint over life drawings with mixed media. This was the first one I did. Her process was, now she had a figure drawing of a whole, like a nude woman. It was beautiful. She drew with pencil. Then she put a light wash of high flow. This is the teal. And that's the color she used, and I had that color, so I used it. Then she put gesso over top. So I followed it exactly. And then after the gesso, she used, not Stabilo, Neocolor 2 crayons. And did brown in the shadows and white in the highlights. So I thought I would try that with a face and some flowers. I have to admit, I did not like the gesso. The gesso left too gritty a texture, and I wasn't sure why it was necessary, because Stabilo, no, I keep saying Stabilo, I'm sorry, Neocolor will go right over acrylic paint. So this was my first one, my trial, on a piece of Canson paper, and this was my second one without the gesso, and I liked it a lot better. I may have followed the reference picture a little too closely, and I never really figured out anything to put on the other side. So that's pencil drawing, blue high flow acrylic watered down a little bit, and then 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 colors of Neocolor 2 crayons. I could take that process and go a lot of places with that as well. I've learned a lot of new things this month. I got some new brushes. They were on sale. They're not really expensive brushes, they're really good ones, but they're much softer and hold a lot more water than the brushes. I'm used to using this kind of brush, and it's just got a lot more tension in it. Doesn't hold as much water. So I was practicing with this brush. Here, look at my to-do list. I did pretty well on my to-do list that day. This girl, you know, Christy Gulf Sprite, showed us how to use flare pens in the same way I use my fountain pens. So I was at the drugstore. This was the same trip that I got the erasable colored pencils. I grabbed one flare. They were selling them individually, and they had cool colors. So I got this teal, and it really worked really well. If I were traveling and I wanted to just take a sketchbook, all I would need is a set of markers and a paintbrush. I don't like water brushes, really. I have them. I don't use them. I could just take a small paintbrush like this, and any cup of water I had, it could keep me happy for a long time. So this next page, I don't know what to say about this next page. If this is the page at the end of the book that's kind of like stuck together too hard, I don't know. I hate the colors. I like the messiness of it. It was fun. It was loose. I also kind of made a real mess of my journal. I don't know. Yeah, it's not really me. There's all collage underneath. There was a lot of work there for a page that I'm just about. So this worked out perfectly. On the 31st, I will admit, I started this picture on the 31st. It took me 2 days because there was a lot of drawing in there. Our live stream with Christy on Patreon, that's Gulf Sprite on Patreon, she was doing tropical fish, and her fish was gorgeous, and it just inspired me. I was like, now I have to do some tropical fish. So I started with a light wash of watercolor, went over with, you know, I could have used the flare, but I used a fountain pen with this turquoise, and then took a small brush and carefully wet in between all of the, and I did the same thing in her shirt. Her eyes were not supposed to be all this blue, but you know, when I was done, one eye was literally half the size of the other one. I was like, how does that happen? So in repairing the eyes and trying to make the one bigger, I had to put in a lot of blue. But it kind of works. It's kind of like a underwater look in her eyes. So that's my whole journal planner for the month. I didn't use it too much as a planner in the pages. There were some to-do lists in there. Obviously, my planner is up here. This goes with me everywhere I go, and helps keep me organized. And this is for my essential oils and my orders and my notes. So my next one will be set up just like this. And I hope to not be so late and have it closer to the first of the month. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it wasn't too much chatting, and I will be seeing you again shortly, hopefully with a new process video. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.